Your relationship with your parents, obviously complicated, difficult. I know you don't particularly like talking about that. I don't want to pry into that. Other than to just ask whether it's had a material effect on you as a person. Do you think a lot of the drive that you have comes from those difficulties and those difficult relationships?
You're right, I don't like talking about it, but it's a great question, and I would say yes, absolutely. My relationship with my parents has definitely, made me who I am today in many different ways, not just, in life and in business, but as a father too. So I wouldn't change my upbringing, not one thing about it. I wouldn't change any of it. So, yeah, great question, and I agree with you.
Has it made you a better father yourself, do you think, a better parent?
100%. 100%. My parents taught me a lot about what I didn't want to be as a parent, and yeah. And I don't really talk about, I don't think I've ever talked about this, but my parents both died recently. So,
I didn't know that.
So that's yeah, I don't like talking about it, but yeah, my parents died recently, and
how did that make you feel, given how difficult things have been?
Holy shit, this is where we're going with this interview, huh? I don't, I'm good with it. I'm good with everything. I focus a lot on my kids and my relationship with them, and I've sort of put my relationship with my parents behind me.
Did you feel sad when you knew they died, or did you feel it was the end of a...
No, I didn't wish any ill will on either one of my parents, but, no, I didn't. When they passed away, I had almost no feelings about it, to be honest with you.
You didn't go to their funerals, either of them?
Yeah, listen, I took care of my father and moved him up to Maine and put him to rest with his family up there. And then my mother, I had nothing to do with any of hers. Her family handled, her when she passed away.
I mean, it's an extraordinarily sad part of your life. And obviously, I didn't know that your parents had both died recently. And I thank you for sharing that very private information. I appreciate it. But I am curious as to, you acknowledge that the drive that you have, a lot of that may have come from this quite rough time you had. But do you feel a great loss that you didn't have the love of your parents that many other people take for granted?
You sound like my wife.
I don't mean to. Well, actually, maybe I do. No, I did not feel that way. And but there's no doubt about it. I cannot deny the fact that the way that I am built and the drive and all the things that I have definitely come from the relationship that I had with my parents. There's no doubt about it. But no, I have no remorse. I don't feel bad about the way that I grew up. I mean it when I say that I wouldn't change one thing about the way that I was brought up, because I truly believe had I not had them for parents, had I not had the upbringing that I did have, that I wouldn't be who I am today. What are the things, Dana, what are the things that it taught you not to do as a parent? And what are the things that it taught you to do as a parent?
Yeah, I think that, the to-dos is I'm here for my kids. I've been married for almost 30 years. You go through, a lot of things in a marriage. I mean, I just went through some stuff last New Year's Eve. These things happen. What you don't do is you don't leave. You don't quit. You don't give up. And you stay, you don't stay together just for your children, but you stay. I made a commitment. 22 years ago, I had my first son, and there's a commitment there to everybody that's involved. And, I've stayed in there. I'm always there for my kids, anything that they ever need. My father taught me, what it feels like to not have a father there at the house, what it's like to not have that person around all the time when you need them. And I would never do that to my kids.
You said a great quote. You talked about my legacy to me is when I drop dead and my kids are at my funeral. I want my 3 kids to get up and say, he's an awesome dad. Is that ultimately, in the end, the real litmus test of success for you? I've seen other people say, you know, actually, if in the end your kids, when they get old enough to make that decision for themselves, if they still want to be around you and they still love you and they still care about you and they would speak at your funeral in a positive way about you, that in the end, that's the ultimate litmus test of success, far more than any financial benefits or gains or fights or whatever it may be.
Well said. I couldn't have said that better myself. You're absolutely right. You know, everybody's always asking about legacy, your legacy. What you did for a living isn't your legacy. Your legacy is your children and their children and you know, how they feel about you, how they feel about... Listen, we all make mistakes and we all fail in life at many different things. My opinion is the one thing that you can't fail is being a parent. It's the ultimate failure. It's what showed that you really weren't focused on the right things in your life if that's what you failed at.
When you referenced the incident on New Year's Eve, and obviously it went viral, everyone saw the video footage and so on, you were very contrite after that. But was the hardest thing of that actually having to talk it over with your kids?
100%. I mean, everybody was acting like there needs to be some big apology to the world. No, the apology was to my kids, for me and my wife. Nobody wants to see their dumb, drunk parents slapping each other on TMZ. You know what I mean? Our oldest son didn't talk to us for like 4 days, and you know, and the other kids had to deal with some stuff too. It's embarrassing, and the only apology that needed to be made was to our children, and the only relationships that needed to be handled immediately was between us and our kids, and